Discover 13 sinister ghost stories, terrifying tales of the cursed and haunted revealed. Sarah wiped down the last table, the diner's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. Outside, the suburban night was heavy with an unshakable chill, echoing the loneliness that surrounded her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an unsettling message, "Time for Emily to come home." The word slithered through the diner, curling around her heart like a vice. What did it mean? The sensation of being watched made her skin prickle. At first, Sarah brushed it off as a prank. But then another message arrived. And another. Strangers seemed to know intimate details about her life, her children's routines, their favorite snacks. Panic tightened her chest like a noose. Was it one of the regulars from the diner? No matter how much she tried to convince herself it wasn't real, dread seeped into her days, like fog rolling in and obscuring reason and safety. As she walked home, the familiar scent of freshly mowed lawns turned toxic. Max's innocent laughter echoed in her ears, trailing behind her like a child's ghost. "Look, Mommy, a shadow!" He exclaimed earlier, pointing at the corner of his bedroom, but shadows weren't supposed to come alive like that. And when Emily said she would hear whispers from her closet every night, Sarah feared that soon the laughter would turn to screams. Panic set deep in her bones. Before long, her once friendly neighbors fell silent. Mrs. Thompson watched from behind her curtains, her cold gaze sending shivers down Sarah's spine. The splendor of suburban life frayed, like the fabric of their neat little community unraveling before her eyes. Alone, she fought an indescribable terror that her home was no longer hers. The turning point was the strange happenings: the furniture shifted overnight, objects misplaced, and her children's restless dreams devolved into nightmares. Just last week, Max burst into her room, trembling. "I saw something in my room." The innocent sound of his voice struck horror deep within her heart. Was it a child's imagination or something sinister lurking in the shadows? Determined to protect her kids, Sarah ventured to the abandoned school down the street. It loomed before her, once bright and lively, now draped in weeds and decay, a witness to the dark history that whispered the names of children who had disappeared long ago. The wind wailed mournfully, urging her back. She needed to understand, to uncover the ghostly ties binding her family to this cursed place, as knowledge was all that stood between them and impending doom. Late that night, as rain pounded against the windows, she confronted her neighbors, demanding to know what happened. Accusations flared like fire. Eyes darted between them, and suddenly, her comfort turned into a suffocating prison. It was like watching the veil lift, exposing hidden fears and shared guilt. But as they whispered their truths, malevolent shadows began gathering outside. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Suddenly, the air crackled and the lights flickered ominously, as if warning her of their peril. Just then, her phone buzzed with another chilling text: "Come find us. We can help." It felt like the universe was collapsing around her, leaving her gasping for answers. The hair on her arms stood on end, the stakes rising as she recognized the potential truth behind the sinister web entwining her life. Would it lead to salvation or destruction? Shadows loomed ever closer, and Sarah was caught in an inescapable embrace of terror. What dark pact had her neighborhood forged, and what would it demand from her family? The rain sliced through the air, turning the world outside Sarah's diner into a blurry smear of shadows and fear. Those shadows danced at the edges of her vision, each flicker inciting a pulse of dread. She glanced back at the dimly lit windows of the diner, feeling a sudden isolation that made her gut twist. It wasn't just the shadows, it was the weight of every whispered secret and hidden curse left unspoken. "Come find us. We can help." The message sat like a stone in her mind. Who were us? And what could they possibly offer that would help her? Ignoring reason, Sarah's instincts pulled her toward the cursed school she had visited earlier. She needed answers and faced the terrifying truth it might be the only choice left. The streets were eerily quiet, the usual chirps of crickets swallowed by the frantic rhythm of her heart. Every step toward the school felt like stepping deeper into an abyss. As she neared the crumbling building, she could feel the air shift, thickening around her like a heavy fog, laden with unshed tears of lost children. Those long-ago voices whispered through the cracks of the old bricks. "Mommy, help us!" The sound was achingly familiar, Max's innocent plea twisting in her ears. Panic surged, tightening around her chest again, and she stumbled through the rusted gate. The school's entrance stood gaping like a mouth ready to swallow her whole. Inside, the air was rancid and damp, filled with a rotten sweetness that clawed at her throat. The patterns of graffiti led her deeper, creating a ghostly map in the shadows. Fleeing footsteps echoed from somewhere within, but fear rooted her to the spot. The dim light flickered, revealing the terrified eyes of a girl around Emily's age peeking from a door further down the hallway. "Help! They're coming!" The child's voice was thin, trembling. Without thinking, Sarah dashed toward her, ignoring the prickling fear dancing along her spine. Who is coming?" she shouted, her voice tinged with urgency, but before the girl could respond, she turned and fled into the dark, her laughter morphing into an eerie echo. Sarah hesitated, but then jolted into action, chasing after her. As she sprinted down the hall, a door slammed shut behind her, and the air grew heavy with a different presence, thick and suffocating. "Sarah!" A voice resonated from the shadows, a haunting melody that sent shivers coursing down her spine. It was familiar, yet twisted, a warped reflection of intimacy. Emily. The walls themselves seemed to pulse around her, echoing the name, dragging her back to her daughter's recent whispers. "Emily. Where are you?" Panic clutched at her heart, urging her to push through the waves of palpable dread. Then came the whispers, rising from the walls like trapped spirits, her children's names blending with the dark chant of a sinister hymn. "Come home, come home." A sudden overpowering urge to run halted her footsteps. A blinding flash burst from the windows, illuminating the entire hallway, revealing dark figures coalescing around her. They were the missing children, their faces twisted in the agony of forgotten screams, mouths opening wide in soundless pleas. "Join us!" they chorused, voices merging into a chilling symphony of torment. Terror constricted her throat. Desperation surged through her as she realized the school wasn't just a haunted place, it was a trap. As the shadows closed in, fingernails grazing her skin, she felt reality slipping away. All that stood between her and oblivion was the faint hope of escape and the chilling revelation that perhaps she was not the only one searching for answers. And just when she thought there was no way out, her phone buzzed violently against her thigh. "Trust in us." The screen flickered open, revealing a new message that made her blood run cold. "What does it mean?" she gasped, just as the darkness descended around her. "Emily!" she screamed. But the voice was drowned out, swallowed by the growing tide of shadows engulfing her. What choice did she have now? The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Sarah's heart raced as the darkness beckoned. Was there still a chance to save her children? Or had she already sealed their fate? The weight of the shadows pressed heavily against Sarah's chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. The message pulsed in her mind, a beacon of dread that drew her deeper into the oppressive darkness. She spun around, grasping for the fading light, but the swirling mass of children's faces blocked her escape. Their mouthless cries echoed, an inescapable chorus whispering promises of suffering and loss. "Join us!" A spark of anger flared within her. "I want tea!" she screamed back, the defiance mixing with the rising tide of fear, fueling her resolve. Maybe the school was a trap, but she wouldn't become another ghost in its halls. She spun on her heels, sprinting toward the doorway she had seen the girl escape through. Every footfall hammered against the rotting floorboards like a war drum, while the shadows slithered behind her, determined to snatch her away. The familiar voice of her daughter, calling for help, rang in her ears a siren song that urged her forward. She would get back to Emily, no matter the cost that at last. She reached the door, flinging it open. The room beyond was a grotesque parody of a classroom, still furnished with worn desks and dusty textbooks. The walls might have once been vibrant, covered now in streaks of mold and peeling paint. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her, rattling on its hinges as if the very building itself sought to keep her inside. She spun back, gasping for breath as she faced the unyielding barrier. A soft sound caught her attention, a twisting noise, like toys forgotten under the floor. Slowly, she turned toward the source, heart hammering. A child's doll lay on the floor, its porcelain face cracked and stained. Its glassy eyes seemed to follow her movements, penetrating her very soul. The darkness around it slithered, and she could feel it tugging at her mind, flaring with thoughts of twisted rebukes and bitter memories. The longer she stayed, the more she felt the weight of the school's grief wrapping around her. "Sarah, come play with us." The voice, a mix of innocence and malice, lingered in the air. It was the girl again, but the sweetness was now tainted with a chilling edge that froze her veins. "Where are you?" she called, desperation coloring her voice. Could it be a trap, or was there a chance she could save this girl, too? The doll twitched unnaturally, her gaze locking onto Sarah's. "We all want to be together again. Don't you miss your children?" It was like a knife piercing her heart. The memories of Emily and Max, their laughter, flashed before her eyes, fragments splintered with fear and a desperate longing. "No. You're lying." Her voice trembled. She could not let the memories rot in this haunted place, she had to remember them alive. Suddenly, the room's shadows shifted, bulging and swirling, as if in a fury at her defiance. They lunged toward her, fingers of darkness reaching out to wrap around her throat, bringing a burning chill that penetrated her skin. They were closing in. Panic surged through her like a wildfire. In a blind rush of adrenaline, she turned, searching for anything that could be a weapon, a way to fend off the suffocating darkness. Her eyes landed on a rusted metal ruler lying on the teacher's desk. It might not protect her, but she had to try. As she grasped the ruler tightly, a whisper seeped from the walls, creeping into her mind. "You can't escape. They won't let you." "Oh, but I can," she yelled, flinging the ruler against the wall. It clattered loudly, creating a moment of surprise that split the air, drawing the shadows back momentarily. The tension broke, and Sarah seized the chance. She lunged toward the only path left, the darkened corner where the flicker of erratic light danced uncertainly. She could almost feel the pull of Emily's voice rising above the whispers, urging her on, but was it too late? Shadows writhed, their fingers reaching again. In the heart of despair, a twisted hope glimmered just beyond the darkness, leading her forward into the unknown. Then, a new buzzing vibration filled the room, startling her. The phone. She fumbled for it, eyes widening as she read the new message. "The truth is hidden within the walls. You must confront it." What truth? And who was she hurting with her choices? As the shadows lunged, she could only hope she wasn't too late to turn back and reveal the horror that lingered beneath her heart before it swallowed her whole. What was waiting behind the next door? Would it lead her to the answers or deeper into despair? The darkness seemed to pulse like a living thing as Sarah squeezed the phone tightly, her knuckles white. The message flickered in front of her, taunting her with its enigmatic promise. "The truth is hidden within the walls." She hesitated, heart pounding. Could this really lead her to Emily, or was it another cruel manipulation from the shadows? With a swift inhale, she shoved the phone into her pocket. Shadows enveloped her, thrumming with an angry intensity, reminding her of all the horrors she had faced. This wasn't just a fight against the darkness, it was a battle for her very soul, a desperate attempt to claw back her children from the abyss. She pressed deeper into the classroom, the air thick with mildew and despair. Each step felt heavier, like she was wading through chains of sorrow. Wisps of ghostly laughter echoed from the corners, drawing her attention. Familiar. Haunting. Emily's laughter. "Mommy." The whisper, soft yet mournful, sent chills cascading down her spine. Instinctively, she turned toward the sound, but the flickering light from the corner flickered erratically, casting monstrous silhouettes against the walls. "Where are you?" Panic gripped her throat, tightening like a noose. The shadows thickened, closing in, wrapping around her legs, pulling her back toward the door she had come through. "You shouldn't have come here," Sarah, a voice whispered from somewhere within the deepening blackness. "No. I will find you," she shouted defiantly, each word igniting the electricity of her anger. As if responding to her courage, the room began to shudder. The walls creaked, groaning with the weight of centuries of anguish. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw words begin to form on the peeling paint, names scrawled in some long-dead child's script: Emily, Max, Hannah, and more, each name bleeding into the walls like ink from a broken pen. "Help us!" The collective voices floated on the air like bittersweet perfume. Each name echoed a story of loss, of suffering. Sarah staggered back, the air growing thick with the sorrow of countless children. Fighting against the tide of despair, she focused on the name that burned brightest in her heart: Emily. "I am coming," she cried, her voice cutting through the smothering darkness, and in that moment, a powerful surge of energy pulsed through the room. A door she hadn't noticed swung open at the far end, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward, almost beckoning her forward. The shadows recoiled, seeming to sense her determination and welling with rage. The darkness rippled and shifted, angry that she had resisted its clutch. She glanced back at the door she had just come through, a prison of memories wanting desperately to trap her inside. But the staircase, a dark promise of answers, sprawled out before her. What if it led to Emily? Taking a breath to steady her nerves, she stepped toward the abyss. The air grew colder as she descended, each step echoing louder than the last, amplifying the thud of her heart. Silence enveloped her like a grave shroud, suffocating and heavy. Then, a faint glow appeared at the bottom, illuminating the uneasy path. Flickering shadows swam around her, but they felt different, less like threats and more like mourners. As she drew closer, shapes began to emerge from the glow. She froze, breath caught in her throat. The figures were children, their faces warped with despair, but they were not entirely lost. "Join us," they chorused once more, but this time it was a plea. A single child stepped forward, her eyes wide and shimmering with tears that spoke of unspeakable pain. "Help us be free, or we will all be trapped forever." The heart-wrenching decision loomed over Sarah. Could she risk everything to confront the darkness? Would this lead her to salvation, or would it seal their fates in eternal torment? As the child extended her hand, Sarah could only wonder, was she ready to face the truth hidden in the walls? Was the cost of revelation worth the risk? The shadows around her twitched ominously, predicting the battle that lay ahead. And before she could answer, the child began to fade, the rest following. Time was ticking, and the path ahead was narrowing. What do I have to do?" she whispered, dread curling in the pit of her stomach. Suddenly, a chilling whisper echoed once more, sending tremors through her spine. "Choose wisely, Sarah. Time is running out. You can't turn back now." What lay at the end of those stairs? Salvation or damnation? The choice was hers to make, and she knew she couldn't falter not while the echoes of her children still lingered in the air. The child's hand continued to float in the air, the soft light illuminating her face, a mix of hope and deep-seated fear. But with every heartbeat, Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift. A sensation of being pulled into a whirlpool of anguish wrapped around her. Time pressed against her like a vice. "Please!" the other children cried, their faces becoming blurred, eyes heavy with pleading. "Before it's too late, let me help you," Sarah shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. This was what she had come for. What she was meant to do. She lunged forward, grasping for the child's fading hand, but there was nothing. A cold patch of air rippled where they had stood, and the light began to dwindle. Darkness crept back in, hissing like a serpent, the laughter now morphing into cries of despair. "Mommy, you can't leave us!" echoed through the abyss, twisting like a knife. Emily. Sarah's voice shattered the silence. But the name felt like dust on her tongue. The moment her voice echoed through the space, the shadows responded, swirling faster, whispering threats that grazed her skin like icy fingers. "Help us, or be consumed." The murmurs crept sinisterly through the stairwell. With trembling hands, Sarah made her decision. She stepped deeper into the glow, past the spot where the children had stood, but the light faded to a sickly green. The air felt heavy, thick with sorrow and desperation. What was it going to cost her? The stairs twisted beneath her feet, spiraling into the ground like a serpent swallowing its tail. Suddenly, she found herself in a cramped room, the walls echoing with muffled cries. The floor was smeared with mud and something darker was it blood. Her skin prickled with realization, this was a chamber filled with grief. "Welcome home," a voice echoed, sultry and low, slithering into her ears like poison. A shadow emerged, tall and sinister, its mass engulfing the corner of the room. The voice was familiar, laced with venom. "Emily. Not Emily, not your precious daughter. Just a remnant of pain, just like you," it sneered, an echo of everything Sarah had suffered. The darkness writhing suddenly felt almost alive, pulsating, as if it was feeding off her terror. She stumbled backward, instinctively pressing against the wall. The air grew thicker, making it hard to breathe. What had she walked into? It was terrifying and magnetic, drawing her closer. Her heart raced, every beat a drum of panic. "Don't you want to know what happened to her?" the shadowing figure asked, voice curling around her like smoke. "I can show you, but you have to embrace the darkness." "No. I want tea," Sarah shouted, trying to break the hold the fear had over her. She had already suffered so much. A laugh echoed, sharp and slicing. "Ah, but you already have. The walls are filled with memories, and they crave to be seen, they crave a vessel." In that moment, 1,000 images flooded Sarah's mind, Emily's laughter, the joy on her face, the lullabies she used to sing. But beneath it all, a tangible thread of dread coiled into her thoughts. The walls seemed to close in, pressing against her. "Free us!" the children cried once more, and she could see their faces floating through the shadows, eyes wide with fear as they mirrored her own. What choice lay ahead? Could she bear the burden of their pain and uncover the truth? "Sarah," a whisper wove through the darkness, colder than winter air. "Choose or lose them all." Footsteps creaked behind her, and she turned to see the shadow slithering closer, a sinister promise wrapping around her throat. "Will you take the plunge? Will you stay in your blissful ignorance, or will you fight back against the darkness that calls you?" She gasped as the room began to spin, memories washing over her, blending with the sorrow of lost souls. Time pulsed and shifted, a heartbeat in the growing abyss. In that moment, just before the last glimmer of light flickered out, Sarah suddenly saw a door behind the figure. A door that promised escape or destruction. What lay behind that door, and would she have the strength to open it? The darkness was alive. And ready to pounce. The choice loomed like a storm cloud overhead, dark and unforgiving, as Sarah grappled with her decision. Was she about to walk into salvation or damnation? The shadows pulsed, swirling with a mind of their own. Sarah's breath quickened as she stood frozen. The door beckoned, but the whispering darkness wrapped tighter around her, constricting like a python. Heart pounding, she reached out for the knob, half expecting the sinister figure to lash out. "Do it!" the voice hissed, its tone mocking. "Open it. Feel it." The choice felt monumental, a thunderous impulse in her core. Would she dare? But what lay beyond it? Was it the truth she sought, or merely a deeper illusion? With a surge of desperation, she turned the knob and pushed. The door creaked open, revealing a blinding light that seared her retinas. She stumbled back, disoriented, as the room around her shook violently. The whispers morphed into frantic shrieks, the children's voices crashing around her like waves. "Help us! Help us!" they screamed, their urgency clawing at her heart. She shielded her eyes, strength waning. Then a wave of cold air enveloped her, and suddenly, she was thrust into another space entirely. It was a long hallway, lined with grotesque portraits of children, their expressions twisted in agony and viewed from edges shrouded in shadow. A chill coursed through her, as if the memories of despair seeped into her very bones. Stepping cautiously, she could almost hear their faint cries mingling with the shadows. They felt like tendrils, reaching for her, pulling her deeper. She could sense each step resonating against the floor, vibrating within her. Then, from the end of the hall, an unnaturally skewed figure emerged, an unmistakable semblance of Emily. But something was very wrong. The child's wide eyes glistened, reflecting a bottomless void, and her mouth stretched into an unsettling grin. "Mommy?" A hollow echo of her daughter's voice left her lips. Sarah's heart raced, caught between hope and horror. "Come closer," Emily said, the ever-innocent tone now laced with something unholy, slithering through the air. "You can save us." "Save you?" Sarah stammered, every instinct telling her it was a trap. "But how? What do you want from me?" "To be with you, forever," Emily's figure beckoned, extending cold, spectral hands toward her. "You have to choose to surrender. Join us." A warmth and an icy dread warred within Sarah. To protect her daughter, to end the suffering, to embrace the darkness that demanded a sacrifice. Could love coexist with despair? Was salvation worth the price of her own soul? "Mommy, I need you." The visage wailed, laughter and cries blending into a cacophony of torment. Each sound echoed like a hammer striking her sanity, the walls pulsing with life, pressing closer, constraining her heart. "I can't lose you," Sarah cried, caught between the dark allure of her child and the pressing need to fight back. A shadow loomed overhead, heavy and unyielding. "She is lost, Sarah. And if you give in, you will join her." Panicked, Sarah pressed her back against the wall, feeling its coldness seep into her skin. Every memory of Emily flickered and blurred. How could she live with the thought of loss again? "Make a choice, Sarah." The sinister voice coiled around her like a viper, promising comfort laced with torment. "Choose darkness, or lose her forever." The ground shook as if in response to her inner turmoil. Suddenly, Sarah turned back towards the door, the one she had come through. What if it could lead her out of this nightmare? Or would it close forever if she turned away now? Could she be strong enough to face whatever lay on the other side? In that moment of pain and remembrance, Sarah saw that darkness as an entity. It flickered, waiting, watching with sinister hunger for her decision. Could she accept the light and surrender the haunting grief, or would she embrace the darkness? Either way, there was a price. The door echoed behind her, creaking louder as the shadows clutched at her ankles, threatening to pull her back deeper into the dark. What would she choose? Would she break the cycle, or succumb to the weight of despair? A baby's cry echoed through the halls, a sound laced with dread, pulling at her heartstrings once more. Would this be the moment she either chooses to break free of it all or to descend into darkness forever? The air grew heavy, suffocating in its intensity. Sarah's mind raced, frantically replaying her daughter's laughter, the warmth of her small hand clasped in hers. But now, all that existed was this fractured version of Emily, grinning from the shadows, a twisted echo of her former self. "Sarah," the visage crooned, a sing-song lilt that sent shivers down her spine. "Don't you want to be with me? Don't you want to save us both?" The words hung in the air with palpable weight, wrapping around her throat. She struggled to breathe, sensing the shadows creeping closer, inching toward her with malevolent intent. "Mommy, please. I'm scared." The voice morphed again, filled with unshed tears. It clawed at her heart, desperation intertwined with something darker, deeper. "Enough!" Sarah shouted, clenching her fists. "You're not Emily. You're something else." The twisted reflection recoiled ever so slightly, the grin faltering. But the shadows intensified, roaring around her, fueled by her own fear. They whispered maddening secrets, promises of eternal joy smothered in grief. Just choose, the sinister voice hissed. Choose to feel free, to feel whole again. Or stand there and let darkness swallow what's left of you. A deep rumbling echoed through the hallway like thunder rolling through the sky, a prelude to a storm. The portraits watched, their eyes widening, the agony of their expressions seemingly morphing into a shared anticipation of her decision. As if they knew the weight of the choice she had to make, heart hammering, Sarah felt her feet shift, inching closer toward Emily. I can't let you go. I want tea. In a heartbeat, the air shifted, growing colder. The whispers turned into howls, sharp and piercing, and she could feel the pressure of the darkness pressing against her. Do it. The entity roared, the walls vibrating in response. Embrace us. Swallowing hard, Sarah forced her gaze aside, her eyes darting to the door she had come through. It felt like an anchor amidst the chaos. Could she reach it? Mommy, don't leave me. Her daughter's voice morphed into a haunting symphony of cries, echoing through the hall, overwhelming her senses. But she had to push through. She had to choose life over anguish. With every ounce of her strength, Sarah turned and dashed toward the door, the heartbeat of darkness thrumming heavily behind her. The shadows shrieked, a choir of betrayal erupting in rage. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, wrapping around her ankles, anchoring her in place. Panic surged as she fought, yanking her legs free. One last scream echoed, an amalgamation of joy and despair, flooding her ears. With a frantic twist, she lunged for the door, wrenching it open wider. Once again, a blinding light surged forward, and she was swept through it, tumbling into an uncertain abyss. The cries faded, but the weight in her chest remained, a realization that she had not yet escaped the fear. As Sarah landed hard, disoriented and gasping, she instinctively looked around. She was in a familiar place, her living room. But something was dreadfully wrong. The air felt thick with despair, and the furniture was cloaked in dust, as if frozen in time. Her heart sank when she caught sight of a small, faded photograph on the wall. It showed her and Emily, laughing on a bright sunny day. But there was another shadow in the background, a figure too dark to distinguish, lurking with sinister intent. Before she could process, a soft voice, sweetly sinister, broke through the haze. Did you really think you could leave? You'll have to try harder, Mommy. The flickering of lights began, casting jagged shadows across the room. Sarah's breath hitched. The darkness had followed her. As the room trembled around her, an urge surged within. It wasn't over. Not yet. What other horrors awaited her in this twisted reality? Would she find a way to confront the darkness, or would it consume her entirely? The lights flickered violently, casting an eerie glow in the room. Shadows danced like taunting specters just out of reach. Heart racing, Sarah faced the photograph on the wall again. The figure in the background seemed to grow darker, its presence heavier. Had it been watching her all along? Mommy. The voice lilted again, thick with a chilling sweetness. Don't you want us to be together? It's so lonely here. Stop it. Sarah shouted, but the words felt hollow. Defiance weighed against the mounting dread. Every breath she took gnawed at her chest, stinging her throat like ice against fire. The silence that followed was deafening, and for a moment, Sarah dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was safe. But that hope shattered like glass. Mommy, don't you want to play? The voice layered over itself, echoing from every corner of the room. It morphed into a cacophony, a twisted choir of laughter that rattled her bones. A shiver ran down her spine as icy fingers of fear curled around her heart. Frantically, she searched for a way out, a path that led beyond this nightmare. The walls seemed to warp and bend, as if alive, closing in on her. Sarah felt the familiar weight of despair crushing her, brutal and suffocating. Just as she turned to look for a window, she heard it. A soft thud followed by a series of wet, dragging sounds. Her entire body went still, every instinct screaming for her to run. But where? Playtime. The darkness hissed, the shadows writhing as if they knew her thoughts, knew her fears. They peeled back from the edges, revealing a doorway that hadn't been there moments before. A new rush of adrenaline surged through her. Maybe it was an escape. Summoning her resolve, Sarah sprinted toward the opening, heart pounding, breaths sharp and shallow, but as she stepped through, the space transformed. Instantly, she found herself in a playground. Kids played in the sun, laughter bright and joyful. It felt like a cruel illusion at first, this shimmering memory of happier days. Glimmers of Emily flickered at the edges of her consciousness. Just a blink, a moment too quick to grasp. "Mommy, look at me," came the joyous plea. "Emily!" Sarah cried, desperately searching the crowd of children. But instead, she saw the shadow. The dark figure lingered at the edge beneath a weathered slide. Darkness seeped from it like tendrils, distorting the happiness around her. "No!" she shrieked, terror clouding her vision. She took a step back, foot colliding with loose gravel. The play area twisted, pulling into chaos. Laughter turned to shrieks, the children became grotesque masks of glee. "Why did you leave?" echoed the soft voice, now sharp and laced with accusation. "We could have had our dreams, Mommy." The once bright atmosphere turned dank and oppressive, the sun swallowed by thickening clouds overhead. Fresh dread coursed through her veins, panic choking her words. "Come play with us, Mommy." The voice beckoned again, dark joy lacing every syllable. On instinct, Sarah backed up, looking for a way out before the shadows closed in. The thick poison of everything she desperately wanted to escape clawed at her again. The mirage of her daughter grinned, the silhouette wavering as the darkness consumed it. "You can't run from love, Sarah. We can be together forever." Her resolve wavered, heart racing faster than her thoughts. It would be so easy, wouldn't it? To give in, to remain here, to play with the memory of her girl, however corrupted it had become. But as that shadow loomed closer, Sarah knew she had to break free, to confront whatever lay behind the darkness for real. This playground of despair couldn't be her forever. With a gasp of determination, she took a step forward, ready to fight, ready to break that hold. "Mommy, please!" echoed one final time, hollow and sorrowful. As she lunged into the chaos, a chilling laughter echoed above all else. Would she uncover the truth behind these terrible echoes? Or would the darkness finally take her as its own? The shadows beckoned, she had to decide. The shadows twisted deeper, wrapping Sarah in a shroud of dread. She felt the air grow thick around her, pressing against her skin like a hand squeezing tight. Each step forward seemed to pull with a gravitational force of its own, desperate to hold her back. "Mommy, don't you want to see me?" The voice was never far, now closer, as if the darkness itself had grown curious, hungry. "Emily!" Sarah shouted, panic-laced desperation flooding her throat. The playground morphed again, the swings creaked as if burdened by unseen weight, the slide warped and twisted unnaturally. Sprinting against the tide of horror that churned around her, Sarah fought the rough texture of despair clawing at her mind. Each footfall felt heavy, like wading through thick mud. "Playtime forever." The whispers slithered and coiled, wrapping around her thoughts, clinging tight. She ran harder, looking for the exit, but the world around her kept shifting. The laughter transformed, becoming harsh and cruel. It echoed with an eerie distortion, haunting and relentless. With every fleeting glance behind her, she spotted the shadowed figure, a mockery of a child's joy that twisted her insides. In a panic-fueled burst, she careened toward a row of trees at the edge of the playground. Their gnarled limbs stretched toward her like skeletal fingers, reaching, grasping, pulling her back into the maw of darkness. She hesitated, realizing the enormity of the choice before her. "Don't leave me again, Mommy." The voice was a soft caress, yet it held the chill of betrayal and longing. Gritting her teeth, Sarah pressed on, darting in between the trees. With every rustling leaf, the whispers intensified, drowning her resolve in a torrential wave of despair. She felt the weight of grief mingling with guilt, something ancient clawing at her heart. Suddenly, a flash of memory struck her. Emily's laughter echoing on a sunny day, the warmth of being together, carefree, nothing but joy. Sarah stumbled, hesitating as the visions swirled. Was this a chance to regain the innocence she lost? The allure of once more holding her child gripped her fiercely. "Mommy, you can come back." The figure's outline flared, glowing faintly in the shadows, morphing between things that were lost and those that could be reclaimed. "No!" Sarah screamed, voice breaking. She wouldn't be swayed, she wouldn't fall into that trap. The trees groaned and shifted, seeming to draw closer. She stumbled, falling against the damp earth as whispers rained around her like shards of ice. "Help me! Get up! Don't let them hold you!" A new voice pierced through, unexpected and sharp, one filled with urgency and encouragement. With a sudden burst of strength, she propelled herself up, refusing to dwell on the shadows. She charged further, pushing against the howling winds that felt like grasping fingers. The trees whirled around her as if in protest, roots snaking out to trip her. Each stroke of her feet on the ground reverberated through her body. But fear matted her vision, hunting her down. She had to escape. She had to find the light, whatever that meant anymore. Just ahead, a glimmer of something caught her eye, a doorway bathed in shimmering light, pulsating gently, promising a way out. "Mommy," this way came the call, haunting yet tantalizing. Time slowed as the shadows writhed behind her, pleading, desperate. They screamed in frustration, the cacophony roaring like a sepulchral wind. Would she have the courage to cross the threshold into the unknown, where freedom or further darkness awaited? With one final glance at the horror behind her, Sarah lunged for the door, heart racing wildly. Would she emerge renewed, or would she fall deeper into the echoing abyss that sought to claim her? The moment her hand touched the doorknob, reality warped around her, pulling her into a swirling vortex. What lay on the other side? The answer approached with growing dread. The moment Sarah stepped through the door, the darkness clung to her, grasping at her ankles like a child refusing to let go. She stumbled into a room bathed in pure light, a stark contrast to the shadows that had pursued her. Instantly, an overwhelming sense of joy flooded her heart, almost unbearable in its intensity. The air sparkled, warm and inviting, as if it were infused with hope. "Mommy!" The bliss melted into an agony of recognition. It was Emily, standing before her, bright as the sun, a halo of light surrounding her form. "You found me." Relief washed over Sarah, tugging at the tendrils of darkness still gnawing at her core. She reached out, but Emily took a step back, a frown creasing her small brow. "You have to choose, Mommy. Choose wisely, or the shadows will come back." "Back?" Sarah's throat tightened. "Emily, I won't lose you again." Tears spilled down her cheeks, mixing with the laughter that echoed around her, as teasing and carefree as a memory replayed. As if the room shared her despair, the brightness flickered, shadows creeping in at the edges, ready to devour their bright sanctuary. "If you don't confront them, they'll follow us everywhere," Emily said, her voice dipped in a solemn tone that pierced Sarah's heart. "But how?" Sarah pleaded, anguish ripping through her chest. "I'm scared. They're so powerful, they know my every fear." "They feed off that fear," Emily replied, soft and steady. "You must face them. Only then can we be free." The air grew heavy, thickening with the weight of unresolved anguish. The loving glow around Emily dimmed, and Sarah felt fear claw up her spine. Laughter mixed with frantic whispers, a chorus of lost children, echoing her doubts. "Mommy, please stay, help us stop it." Sarah shouted, rage and love surging through her like a wildfire. "You aren't lost. None of you are. You're just trapped." The darkness pulsated at her words, swirling closer, hungry and vengeful. Emily's eyes widened, and she cautiously stepped forward, her small hand reaching for Sarah's. "Don't believe what you see or hear. You are stronger than they think." Feeling Emily's warmth seep into her very being, Sarah braced herself. The dance of light and dark battled for dominance. "You can't have my children!" she screamed. The shadows recoiled, and the figures of children blipped in and out, their tiny faces echoing with terror and sorrow. "Emily, I'm not afraid of you anymore," she declared, voice crackling with defiance. "We will not live in fear. I choose love. I choose light." With that, she stepped forward, into the encroaching darkness, feeling the chill wrap around her like a cloak. Slowly, the shadows began to withdraw, hissing in rage, competing against the fierce warmth radiating from Emily. "Mommy!" Emily's eyes sparkled, reflecting the longing and love seeping from Sarah's heart. "Hold on to me." Sarah reached out, grabbing her daughter's hand fiercely. Together. The moment their fingers locked, a surge of warmth erupted, pushing back the shadows like sunlight scattering fog. The darkness hissed, vibrating, the loss of its grip sending shockwaves through the air. Emily beamed. "You can't take us. We're free." All at once, the air around them trembled, cracks of light breaking through the shadowy tendrils that twisted and faded into nothingness. The whispers turned into wails, then finally, silence fell around them like a blanket, the kind of quiet that cradles the soul. "Mommy!" Emily laughed, dancing in the light. "You did it. We can play again. Yes. We can be together." Sarah enveloped Emily in a hug, pouring every ounce of love and strength she had. The room flourished with verdant greenery, blooming flowers beginning to sprout where shadows once lingered. Joy replaced dread, bubbling in their hearts as both mother and daughter laughed freely, the haunting memories dissolving into fleeting echoes, but outside, the memories of those lost lingered still, as faint whispers. Could they hear her victory? Could they find peace? "You're not forgotten," she whispered to the unseen spirits. "Your light lives on." With one last glance back at the dark space, she stood tall, holding Emily's hand tightly, as they embraced the dawn of a new chapter together. As the last remnants of darkness evaporated, Sarah felt hope blossom within. She could see the bright future ahead, the laughter, love, faith, and the strength that would carry them forever, and so, as their world brightened before them, she understood this was not an end, but a new beginning. Now, as the story of Sarah and Emily closes, there's one thing you need to do: subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this emotional finale, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep the excitement alive.